Hi friends, welcome back to the Bible Project podcast, and we're in episode 195 of our podcast series, and this is season 2, and we're in the season 2 episode 126, the beginning of covering Genesis chapter 17. And the question I'm asking this week, and the title I've given to today's introductory talk, is what kind of a person do you want to be? And that's a big question, isn't it? Because what I'm getting at is, do you want to be the kind of person who, in a crisis, is someone that friends and family can rely on? Or do you want to be the person who, when one of life's struggle comes along, is the person that adds to the misery, adds to the confusion of everyone they encounter? So I suppose what I'm really asking is, who do you want to be in a crisis? Do you want to be a person who adds to the crisis, or do you want to be the type of person that people turn to for comfort and for strength, and maybe even perhaps for some wise counsel? Well, that's what we're considering today, because I believe a correct understanding of the true meaning of sacrifice as portrayed in these ancient Genesis stories, and particularly in the story of Abraham, will help you be the type of person who knows how to react when facing one of life's challenges, or even when those around you are facing a challenge, something that seems and might seem even an impossible situation in worldly terms. And you know what? If we can get hold of that, that's a really wonderful thing to know. Now, in going through the book of Genesis, we've already seen several people have to face up to what would seem impossible situations. Even in the Abraham story we've been looking at recently, we can see that he found himself in these kind of situations more than once. But I think what is taught here applies to any of us facing a seemingly impossible situation. And what I'd like us to do today is to see what God said to Abraham when Abraham found himself facing such a seemingly impossible situation. So for the next few podcasts, over the next few days together, we're going to be looking at Genesis chapter 17. Now, the first opening couple of verses stand as an introduction to what is rather a long chapter, and it begins by saying this. When Abraham was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, I am God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless. Then I will make my covenant between me and you, and your numbers will greatly increase. So we have an encounter and a conversation between Abraham and God. Now remember, Abraham is 99 years old at this point, and God addresses him with this very interesting turn of phrase. Walk before me, he says. In the book of Genesis, we've already been told that Adam walked with God. You may remember we were also told way back that Enoch walked with God. But now we're told that Abraham is told to walk with God. So is there a difference in meaning here? What is exactly going on? Well, Alexander Maclaren, a 19th century biblical commentator, described this phrase, and I find this very helpful on what it means, and this is what he said about this verse. Walking with God in this context is walking before God in an active life spent in continual consciousness of being open before the eyes of Him to whom we have to give an account. The story of the chapter so far is that God has called Abraham and said, Abraham, you must go out into the great unknown, and go wherever I tell you to go. Go to where you're actually a stranger. Go out into the unknown and go out and try and establish yourself out there. And if you do that, God says great things will come of it, regardless of where you end up. Now, I think obedience to that command is the walking before God that is being referred to here. So the Lord appears to him here and says, I am God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and blamelessly. Now, it's not like Abraham stepping out into the future knowing what's going on. This is a call of God to take a step of faith. You might say a leap of faith. It requires such a leap of faith for any of us to move out into the world, for any of us to go beyond our comfort zone, because the world, when we get out there, outside our comfort zone can feel and seem a very dangerous place, can't it? Now, you might say, and some would say there are good reasons if you're a Christian believer to hunker down and to sort of avoid the dangers of the world, to sort of hide in the spiritual basement, if you like. But that isn't what God calls us to do, and that doesn't really help when it comes to facing the dangers of the world, and it certainly won't make them go away or make them better. So the thing is, God calls Abraham, or anybody else for that matter of fact, and tells us to go out into the world. It's a call to faith, a call to walk before God, and in some sense, just like Abraham, we too must take up that initiative and step out in faith. Any person who steps out into the great unknown is by nature taking a leap of faith, and about which God says that when we get out there, then great things are going to happen. Now, perhaps frustratingly for Abraham and frustratingly for us today, God is a little short in detail of exactly what might take place. But just imagine if God laid out the whole story and swept the obstacles out of our way or Abraham's way or the path before him. Well, in this case, Abraham wouldn't really have been walking in faith. And if that was our story, then we wouldn't really be walking in faith either, would we? There would be no real initiative, or that having said that, there would also be no free will in our pursuit of God's plan in our lives. So God is asking all of us a really challenging question here. He asked Abraham it that day, and he's asking us that question that day. Here's the question. How much trouble do you want in your life? How much difficulty do you want to have in your life? How many challenges do you want to face in your life, friends? Now, that might seem like a strange question, and I'd going to give you the opportunity to think about it for a little while before I come back with a few suggestions of what this passage teaches us about that in the next episode. So thank you for joining me, and it's bye for now.